I'm going to do a crypto market update for you. I'm recording this on the 23rd. I believe you'll see it on the 24th. It's the end of business day, Eastern Standard Time in the US. I'm going to go through it fairly quickly. I do crypto analysis, strategy videos, and today we're going to look at the market as a whole to see where we are because things have been going down, at least the total market has. So we're going to walk through it the same way I always do. I follow the same macro view and then down to a micro view and then determine if we believe we're actually in an alt season yet, and therefore what should we do. I do daily updates in my school community. It's a monthly fee community. There's a link down below if you're interested, and at the very end I'll get into it and you can learn a little more about it. But let's get started. This is what we've all see all the time. The idea that money is first into Bitcoin, and when that starts to move, people take profits. They move into Ethereum, and then it moves into what they call all the other altcoins. Ethereum is an altcoin. Larger cap ones, smaller cap, that sort of thing. So let's look at the total market. Here's the total market, and the total market is to encapsulate all of the crypto market caps added up. It's around 3.8 trillion when I'm recording this. Now, it had hit almost 4 trillion. There are some bars up here. And you see this big drop. And I follow things on X, and I'm in the crypto markets all day long, every day. So people, of course, you get the, oh no, the market's dropping, that sort of thing. Let's look at it, just interestingly enough, on a weekly chart. On a weekly chart, this is what has happened, this little red here. Now, it had dropped down to about 3 trillion. This is interesting. This red line says last bull market all-time high. So the last bull market had peaked right up here in 2021. It's as high as it got, about 3 trillion. This time, recently, we came down and touched the 3 trillion line. And then we started this incredible uptrend. And if you follow this wick, it hit almost 4 trillion. So think about that. We went from this last run that has just gone unabated, went from 3 trillion to 4 trillion. That's a 33% increase in the total market. That is huge. Now, in my school community, I do daily updates, and for a while now, I've been saying this is crazy. It needs to correct. Corrections are healthy. So the fact that it has come down has not surprised me. And I want to point this out. Oftentimes, it's not uncommon to get a 50% retracement. So if we had this $1 trillion run, this red line represents 50% of it, or 500 billion, half a trillion. This red line is half a trillion. So don't be surprised. Here's the top. If it comes down, so this is 50% of the run by this red line represented. This is 50% of the run. So if it were to come down to 3.5 trillion, that would not surprise me. That would be a 50% retracement. So we do expect some sort of retracement. Let's see where it goes from there. That's the total market. There's also total 2 and total 3, but let's look at others because others is to be representative and to what most people look at when we just talk about the altcoin market itself. And I intentionally started it here. As we zoom in, we can see this orange line was the high of the last bull market. So while the total market is above the all-time high of last 2021, the others market is not even close. 300 billion. And it was almost 500 billion last time's all-time high. So we have a ways to go. But if you look at this, you'll see, just like total, it shot up and barely had any little corrections. And now we've gotten one. Again, 50% would probably put us around, 260 billion. That wouldn't surprise me because we need, and it's healthy, to have somewhat of a pullback. Okay, what do we look at next? Bitcoin itself. And this is interesting because Bitcoin has hit some all-time highs. Once you hit an all-time high, you know that every single person that has bought Bitcoin has a profit or is break even the moment you hit an all-time high. It's an interesting thing to think about. No one's at a loss. This is a daily chart, and I just did some volume, not going back very far to show these volume shelves. There's one at around 117 or 118,000. So this is a big volume area. Not surprised that it's been choppy through here. As you can see, this chop goes along with this volume. And then it shot up because there was little to no resistance through here. And then now it's teetering around this particular, what was resistance becomes support. It's resistance to get through it, and then it's support as it's bouncing around. Not surprising, particularly because if you look at the RSI, it was over 80. Now actually 76, close. Once it gets over 80, some people say 70, I like 80. Typically that means overbought, and you'll normally see somewhat of a correction, sideways move, or a downward move. So the last time it was up here, it did a sideways move for quite a while. Shot up, again, overbought, sideways move. Not surprising. If we look at it on the weekly, as you know, it's following what most people have pointed out, is that it's following the money supply. The global money supply, if we add that on here real quick, we'll see that it seems to fit that pattern very nicely. And the global money supply has just been going up. It's shot up with that. It's kind of going sideways as the global money supply slowed down, but it looks like it's another big leg up, and then a little bit of a reversal here. But that's 12 weeks out from almost the end of July. 12 weeks is 3 months. So that's going to be a while before this comes into play. So not surprising, Bitcoin's still running. Everyone believes it's going to continue to move. Now, we want to talk about, what about altcoin season? When are the alts going to move? Are we in it? A lot of people thought, well, because of this huge jump of $1 trillion, a 33% jump, we must be in it. But we look at Bitcoin dominance next, which is the percentage of the total market. What percentage of this almost 4 trillion market does Bitcoin make up? That's what's represented here. It makes up, at the moment, 62% of the market. Now, it had this incredible drop. That's what we want to see, a drop. Because once you see a drop, if it's significant enough, it's going to mean that we should be having an altcoin season. So if we zoom in here, you can see 2021, that was the Bitcoin dominance high. It got up to about 66. It started to drop. Is that the drop we're waiting for? Most people would point to, and we always look at, the pi cycle top. Long story short, if these two moving averages cross, they cross very rarely. When they do, it says that within 3 days, the Bitcoin dominance is the drop that we're looking for. Okay, so according to that, we're not yet in altcoin season. The other thing we want to look at, this is the blue line representing 2021. This is when altcoins went through the roof. Over here, we're waiting for the same thing. This is when Ethereum outperforms Bitcoin. If you're new, I always say, in order for Bitcoin dominance to drop, the price of Bitcoin doesn't necessarily have to drop. It just means that if other things are moving up, Bitcoin's less of the total market cap. So this is showing when Ethereum starts to outperform Bitcoin. Outperforming also can mean that Bitcoin, let's say, goes up 2% for the day, but Ethereum goes up 6% for the day. That's outperformance. Ethereum's moving at a higher rate, percentage-wise. So we saw a nice jump recently, then it moved sideways, and we had this other great jump when the market moved up. So that's good. We want to see that. But according to the pi cycle top indicator, we're not there yet. Let's take a look at the Ethereum price. Because as this chart shows, once the money flows from Bitcoin to Ethereum, then we can start looking at altcoin season. Now, these are some volume shelves here. But what's interesting, if you notice, it wasn't that long ago, it went from 1,400 all the way up to about 3,800. Now, 4,000 seems to be this magic number. And last run up, it was 4,867. That was the high. That's this orange line. However, as you can see, we keep butting up against this $4,000 mental number. But if it goes from 1,400 to 3,800, if you were to have a 50% retrace, I believe that's around 2,600, which ironically is this volume shelf here, the largest at that price of 2,600, going all the way back to, I guess, around March time when it had gotten run back up. So we're looking at all the volume within this sideways move. And we're seeing that it's pretty much at 2,600. A 50% retrace would be about 2,600. What am I saying? I'm saying, one, it's healthy to have a drop, and I wouldn't be surprised if it actually comes down to 2,600. What is interesting is if you look at the volume down here, that push was pushed up with significant volume, just as high as the last time, and it's come down on a little bit of a sell-off. Okay, so far, everything is looking just fine, meaning it looks like we're still moving towards an altcoin season. And the patterns are following the patterns of the last market. I want to look at 3 cryptos. So we looked at macro. We moved down sort of to micro. This is micro. Let's look at a couple individual cryptocurrencies. This happens to be Hedera, and I want to point it out for a reason. One, it came up. Of course, it's dropping because the total market's dropping. Altcoins today are dropping. I circled this area to show that's a fairly significant price drop. It just so happens its largest volume shelf is up here around 29 or 30 cents. That's going to be resistance until it becomes support. That's a fairly big drop in price. However, if we look at the volume over here, see this arrow pointing at what I circled? As it's been pushing up, the volume has gone up significantly. And if we look over time, the volume, even though the price had come down, the volume kept building up. So it wasn't surprising that it finally pushed through with significant volume. It's the highest volume it's had. This volume is higher than when it was at 40 cents. That's significant. So this is buying pressure. And even though this is a huge price drop, I wouldn't say a huge price drop, a decent daily price drop, the volume drop is insignificant. Meaning the price dropped on very little selling pressure, which typically means it's going to have a nice rebound. Also, the RSI was over 80. And when you get over 80, usually you're going to have a sideways move or some sort of a correction. So another thing I'm trying to point out is that this is not unordinary. We're having a correction. It's healthy. And some of the drops on volume really aren't that strong, which leads us to believe it's going to have a nice bounce back. Now, if we look at 2 others, Ondo. I'm a big fan of Ondo. I wanted to show this pattern because a lot of the crypto you're going to look at has this November, December top, down, sideways, and up. And we're waiting for these moves to move to the upside, hopefully with an altcoin season, but it needs volume to push it up. So I want you to look at this volume chart. The volume is still going lower. Even though it's gone up, it's lower than this last peak. You really want to see this move. You want a confirmation with a lot of buying pressure. Let me show you another one. Look at that chart. Etch it in your brain. Go to this one. Should have zoomed in more. This is AKT. The reason I wanted to show you AKT is because, as you can see, also November, December peak, down, sideways. See this area right here? Looks very similar to this chart here if we were to just zoom in even more. Okay? And then there's its volume, but its highest was here. Lower, it needs a push. We look at this one, down, sideways, but look at the volume. Look how different this is. This volume has its peak here. And as it's gone down, the peaks have been lower, meaning this is a legitimate sell-off because you've got more selling than buying. This is very interesting. AKT, a cash network. It has been selling off just like the rest of the market, yet the buying pressure has been up. This is buying pressure. So if you said to me you could only invest in one of these 2, which one do you want? Because I think they're both going to go up. I love them both for various reasons. However, this pattern to me says, okay, this looks like it's soon going to break to the upside. Whereas this pattern says, it could possibly do a little more lingering before it moves. So I wanted to point that out. Take a look at the volume when you're looking at your individual cryptos. Now, as far as altcoin season goes, I'll put a link to this down below. You've seen me show this before. Lots of people show this one. Whoever put this together, it's great. While we look at things like Bitcoin dominance and the Pi cycle top indicator, here's Pi cycle top indicators number 2. They have 30 different indicators that when they hit a particular mark, the reference points, then it says, okay, that means we're going into alt season. Of the 30, none of them say alt season yet. They're all saying hold, not even going even close towards a sell. That's the last thing I wanted to show you. But generally speaking, to me, let's see what happens tomorrow and Friday and through the weekend, because usually Saturdays and Sundays have a little lower volume. They can be manipulated a little more. So sometimes you have the biggest drops on Saturdays, particularly Sundays. But as far as I'm concerned, this is healthy. This is good. We're still moving in the right direction yet. We're not technically in an alt season yet. So even though things are moving, there's still time to move your coins around. If you want to reevaluate, take advantage of it. Thanks for watching. Now, please do listen to my school community so you can learn more about what we do there. Have a great day. My disclaimer. I'm Brian. I'm a big dumb animal. Don't do what I do. Informational purposes only. 2, you'll see a link down below, or at least a QR code. In the description, there's a link. If you sign up for iTrust Capital, if you're in the US, you can get crypto in an IRA, tax-free gains. You can get an extra $100 if you use my link. Third thing, you'll see here I have a school community. There's a link in the description below. You can see the link here on the screen. And if you join, we have daily discussions about all sorts of crypto. I also do a daily update there on the market. And most importantly, I have classes and courses to teach you everything about crypto.